Right everyone, it is Finn here, and today we're going to be talking about Tottenham Hotspurs because for football's sake, somebody has to. How do you go from winning your first 3 Premier League games to losing 3-0 to Crystal Palace, 3-0 to Chelsea, and then 3-1 to Arsenal? Something is not quite right at Tottenham Hotspurs.
No way!
And today we're going to be discussing what exactly that problem is. Is it the team in general? Is it Nuno Santos, their manager? Should they have sold Harry Kane? We're going to be discussing all of those things in today's video, which of course, if you like discussions like this, videos like this, make sure to subscribe down below for more content like this in the future. But Tottenham Hotspurs, something has gone seriously south. As I said, they were the only team to win their first 3 Premier League games, so for them to concede 9 goals and score 1 in their next 3, something is not quite right. Something is not quite gelling together, and I think there are a plethora, there are numerous problems in this club, and it's so weird to think that within a handful of years, don't forget, they've gone from being Champions League finalists. This team was in the Champions League final to being a mid-table Premier League team, not looking like they can compete for anything. Yes, I know, going into the season, no one expects Spurs to win the Premier League or to even get a Champions League spot nowadays. But at the moment, the way they are playing, it is just pathetic. Now, obviously, I think when you talk about clubs and not doing necessarily well, everyone seems to point at the manager. Do I think Nuno Santos is the wrong manager? Or do I think he's a bad manager for Spurs? I don't necessarily think so. Don't forget, he won the Manager of the Month in his first Premier League season or first Premier League month managing Spurs, so he can't be a totally awful manager. I mean, he beat Manchester City. I think he could potentially be a great manager for Spurs. I think it is going to take time though for him to really settle into this club. Don't forget, Nuno Santos, for example, in the Premier League hasn't quite managed a club with this amount of quality in it. Yes, obviously Wolverhampton Wanderers, who he managed, had a lot of quality in it, but he more or less had the same players on the pitch week in, week out. He didn't have the kind of depth that Spurs did. He didn't quite have the same budget Spurs did. I mean, when Nuno Santos managed Wolves, you knew Rui Patricio was going to be the goalkeeper. You knew the back 4 or back 5 would have consisted of the likes of Doherty, Bolly, Connor Cody, Sites with Johnny on the left side. You knew the midfield would be Matinho, Neves, and the front 3 would be Adama Traore, Jota and Jimenez up front. You knew he was going to have the same squad week in, week out. Where maybe at Spurs, maybe he is struggling with kind of a stronger squad, with a stronger depth squad, which as I said might sound like a weird thing, but it's kind of those tactics and things that you have to get used to over time. As I said, still kind of new to the job, and maybe he'll get used to it over time, but at the end of the day, there is no excuse for the way Spurs are playing at the moment. I think a huge factor is the fact that they don't actually have a leader at the back anymore. Over the years, yes, although maybe not the best centre-backs in the world, but they were pretty highly regarded in terms of their centre-back ability. They've had the likes of Vertonghen, they've had the likes of Alderweireld, who, as I said, great defensive abilities, and on their day, really good leaders. Now, of course, the likes of Vertonghen and Alderweireld leaving the club over the last few years. As I said, those are some big players to miss, and now I wouldn't quite say they've got that leadership at the back. Obviously, we've seen big kind of defensive leaders kind of change clubs over the years. Obviously, the likes of Harry Maguire, no, he's not the best centre-back in the world, but his leadership matters in that United defense. He kind of tells players what to do. He kind of puts them in his place. Virgil van Dijk at Liverpool. We've seen players like that over the years really change defense, where if you look at Spurs' defense, I don't see a leader at the back. In their last 3 games that they've conceded 9 goals in, I would say that Spurs just sit there in defense when they see the fast counter-attack coming towards them. I mean, all the goals they concede seem to be when the defense just stands still, like deers in their headlights. They don't seem to move a single muscle and just allow the attack to come in. You kind of need that bossy centre-back. You need that bossy leader at the back to tell the defenders, okay, no, this is what you do. You don't stand there. You need to do something. Because at the moment, the defense kind of just sits still in just wonder. It's like a bus full of kids with divorced parents kind of driving past a street full of happy families saying, what is that? Which, by the way, if that was ever made into a Netflix documentary or movie, I would 100% watch that movie. It could be an interesting one. But you guys know what I'm saying. I just don't feel like this defense really has that leader at the back. In terms of the attack, I am going to get a lot of criticism for this, but I thought Spurs were better without Harry Kane in that first game of the season. I thought when they had the likes of Lucas Moura, Heung-min Son, Bergwijn and Dele Alli as a kind of front 4, I thought that's the deadliest they've actually looked this season. But ever since Harry Kane has rejoined the team, I think Spurs have looked weak up front, and they might regret not selling him for about 100 to 120 million. If you think about it, if they sold him for 120 million, they could have bought a really good striker for about 80 million, and then another really good centre-back for around 40 million. I think Spurs might have stuffed up big time, because if Harry Kane has an awful season and they want to sell him, they're not going to get the same kind of money for him. Look, obviously I highly rate Harry Kane as one of the best strikers in the world. I mean, you can't not for a striker who was the top goal scorer and assist maker in the Premier League last season. But Harry Kane, I mean, yes, he's also notoriously been bad in the beginning of Premier League seasons, especially September. But so far this season, he is just not looking like the Harry Kane we used to know. Yes, of course, missed the first game. There was that huge controversy. Is he going to stay? Is he going to leave? But I mean, versus Crystal Palace, I think it was, he didn't have a single touch in the box for the first time in his professional career. That is shocking. Versus Arsenal, you really expected Spurs to be the better team, but Harry Kane only had 5 completed passes in that game and 11 giveaways. He lost possession 11 times, more than double the amount of passes he made. Harry Kane has not had a good season, and it begs the question, should Spurs have gotten rid of the likes of Harry Kane? As I said, to me, the deadliest they've looked this season is when Heung-min Son was up front as their main striker, and I live by that. I still think come January, if Harry Kane's not looking that good, if they can sell him for at least 80 million, they should definitely do so. They should use that cash, even if they get rid of Harry Kane to a rival like Manchester City. At the end of the day, yes, it is a rival, but Spurs at the moment, their priority isn't to win the league. They don't need a squad that will win the league. They need a team that, once again, they can compete for a European spot, because at the moment, once again, they are not looking terrific. Even in the Conference League, they lost their first Conference League game this season, and then they drew to the likes of Rennes. Even in terms of the Carabao Cup, yes, I'm a Manchester United fan, I can't talk too much about the Carabao Cup, but I can admit that my team hasn't been good. But Tottenham Hotspur's only beating Wolves on penalties, a team that hasn't been terrific once again this season. Tottenham Hotspurs aren't looking like they are in a good place at the moment, and as I said, I think Harry Kane up front, he could be a bit of dead wood this season. As I said, I think going forward, you need Heung-min Son, you need Bergwijn, you need Lucas Moura, you need Dele Alli, and I think that is good enough. In terms of the midfield, losing a player like Sissoko to Watford, I think they need to replace him, because looking at Spurs as a whole, to define a top quality team, I think you need more of a defined team that you can put forward. Yes, Højbjerg, in my opinion, one of the best holding midfielders in the entire world, heavily underrated, but you kind of need that defensive midfield partner with him, and until that position is defined, I don't think Spurs are going places. They need to get that, they need that leadership at the back. Yes, I know they've obviously got Christian Romero, who's new to the squad. We haven't seen enough of him yet. When he has played though, I will admit I've been really impressed with him, but at the end of the day, once again, hasn't been getting that much game time when he's properly in the squad. I do think that Spurs do need to get another centre back to go with him, because at the moment, I feel so sorry for Hugo Lloris. He has put forward some amazing saves. Let's not forget, this is a World Cup winning captain, Hugo Lloris. I don't understand, for years now, people have been talking about the fact that Harry Kane deserves so much more than Spurs and he needs to move away. What about a World Cup winning captain? Why does Hugo Lloris not deserve more? I mean, he has really kept Spurs in it on multiple occasions, and to me, once again, as I said, Spurs just so many weak areas at the moment. Looking at them versus Crystal Palace, yes, of course, Tanganga getting that red card, that really stupid red card. I mean, genuinely just reckless and deserved red card for that. That kind of threw the game away. That kind of turned the tables a tiny bit in terms of the game plan. It left them way open at the back, but at the end of the day, should have still defended better versus Crystal Palace. As I said, I just feel like Spurs' defense at the moment is a bit too static. They don't seem to move around. They don't seem to man mark. They kind of just, as I said, stand like deer in the headlights. They just seem to watch the attack happens as it plays. I still think they need a top centre-back like Alvedi from Borussia Mönchengladbach, the Switzerland midfielder who, once again, was brilliant at the Euros. He was in Kylian Mbappe's pocket. I think they need a centre-back like that. Next game versus Chelsea, they conceded 3 goals to 3 defensive players. Once again, the defence, way too static, not moving around enough, not man-marking enough. In terms of conceding set pieces, they were horrific. Versus Arsenal, as I said, that was all about static defense and not being able to get forward. I think Tottenham Hotspurs are in a really lost place at the moment and they need to step up big time. Guys, that is pretty much it for today's video. Once again, I know it's a tiny bit all over the place, but I wanted to give you my opinion on Tottenham Hotspurs because it is not looking good enough. I mean, they should have kept Pochettino if given the chance. I could imagine they would be competing for a top 4 spot if they still had Pochettino. Mark my words, that is genuinely my opinion. But guys, I want to hear your guys' opinions down below. Do you think Tottenham Hotspurs should have sold Harry Kane? Do you think that was the better thing to do? Or do you think keeping him is the better option and that he'll improve over time? Ladies and gentlemen, that is pretty much it for today's video. Once again, if you like this kind of content, just someone's opinion on the football world, make sure to subscribe down below. I would really appreciate it, and I'm also very close to 1,700 subscribers. Along with hitting that like button down below, could we please get this video to 15 likes? Something like that. But guys, this has been Finn. FY Tottenham Hotspurs, you are in a real mess at the moment. And yeah, but it's still early days in the Premier League. Absolutely anything can happen, but it needs to change, and it needs to change fast. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Finn, FY. Until next time, cheers.